Welcome! It's been a long time since we've done an episode thanks to all the stuff that's been going on in the world right now. I'm Advent Nebula.
And I'm Cruellica Kain, and thank you for checking out the newest episode of Pop Culture Therapy. It certainly has been forever and a day.
Yeah, it has been a while. So, we promised before we had our hiatus because of
COVID-19.
That we'd end up starting off with the Fruits Basket episode that we had promised back, I think almost a month ago now.
Yeah, it was about a little over a month ago. We're hoping, our intent was to kick this episode off before the newest season started of Fruits Basket, because for this show, being a shoujo series, which usually when people think shoujo, they think overly girly like Sailor Moon or Pre-Tier. But there's so much that goes into the world of shoujo that it's not so limited as people think. And Advent, you wanted to really talk about this because as much as I love the series, and I could talk about it for days on end, it's a powerful series for you, especially because it's shoujo, because it's a different type of slice of life and emotional series.
Yeah, this is a show that I ended up getting drawn into from some friends I had in college/high school in around 2002. So this series originally came around in 2001. I ended up reading the manga when I found out that the anime was just an adaptation of the first part of it. And it's one of the few shoujo series that I really, truly enjoy to an extent that I do. Utena being really the other one, but both series I've been able to connect with on the emotional side because there are character arcs that you end up just latching onto in both shows. But this one in particular, I ended up latching onto a character that we're not even going to get a full arc of hers for now that it's been the first 3 episodes have aired of the second season. She's not going to come in for a couple more episodes, and with that being Rin.
Yeah, Rin Soma, she's kind of a hard character. Not a hard in a bad character or difficult writing or anything like that. She's just so emotionally broken. It does make me laugh when you say you got into it in college, because I'm 5 years older than you, and I actually did get into it college because I got it right when it came out. Tokyo Pop was releasing the volumes. Funimation was doing the original series. I ate that up. It was the first anime series outside of like Dragon Ball or Trouble Chocolate or Master Mosquiton that I'm like, oh my god, I must have this.
And Funimation took a risk in 2001 when they originally brought this series over, because this was the first time they went with a show that wasn't an action-oriented show, considering they had shows like Blue Gender and Dragon Ball be their mainstay series at the time.
Well, yeah, because they also had Yu Yu Hakusho at the time, because, well, the series came out in 2001 in Japan. Technically, it did not get to the United States until about 2003. And it came out in a 4-part compilation. It was part 1, part 2, part 3, I believe were 6 episodes each, and part 4 was 4. And one that was different than everything else that was being released anime-wise, because anime-wise for the DVDs was being released exactly like it was in Japan, where it was 2 to 3 episodes.
Sometimes you'd be lucky to get 4, and then this kind of started the jump start here in the U.S. on the DVD market of 5 to 6 episodes to a disc a couple years later.
It did. So Funimation and Fruits Basket together, which I'm still happy they're together, and the remaking or retelling.
I'm so glad that Funimation and Sony are funding the remake as well.
Absolutely. And so, looking at the series, my first introduction immediately was the first volume of the anime. And then the moment I got through that 6 episodes, which I watched, God, Marcus wanted to kill me. Or Marcus, everybody knows his real name. Kaiji Okami wanted to kill me because I rewatched that first parts of those first six episodes probably about 10 times until the second set came out. And then when the manga started coming out through Tokyo Pop, I ate all of that up instantaneously. I think I spent probably over the years, probably about $400 or $500 on Fruits Basket alone.
Well, when you think about Toru as a character, she's extremely positive despite everything that keeps happening in her life.
Well, Toru Honda, she speaks to me. I can't say she speaks to me on a direct personal level because I think I actually relate technically to her mother and Arisa Uotani, her best friend, a little bit more because they are the ones that came from that very troubled background. But Toru, we talked about it during our one of our panels that we created, Who in the Anime Are You? And we talk about how Toru is actually technically an extroverted character. Even though she's very meek in her presentation and she seems introverted in her kind of how she presents her confidence, but she's actually very extroverted in how she engages everyone. And the fact that she finds so much beauty in the negative of everything that has happened to her. Her mother dies. She loses her home. She loses her home again with her grandfather. She loses her home for the third time when she's staying in the tent due to a landslide. And this poor girl goes through so much, but still finds a way to look at the positive of everything.
She truly does. And it's amazing just how well written the characters are as you go through. Now, as I've gotten older now watching the remake, it's kind of funny how you look at it again, and now I relate more to Shirogane if anybody.
Oh, Shiguri? Yeah. Yes. Shiguri, I actually relate. So, that's a very good point. When I first watched this in my early 20s, God, it feels so long ago. But when I first watched the series, and I think you could say the same as your teens, my favorite character, he's still one of my favorite characters, but because I actually got where he was coming from on that abusive spectrum, was Kyo.
Yeah.
Kyo Soma, having to go through that abuse, both mental and physical, I could so relate to that because I know what it feels like to have a parent hate you. Even if it's unintentional. I know what it is to have a parent say they love you, they love you, they love you, but they're so abusive, like with Kyo's mother before she passes. And I don't want to go into all of that because if you don't know much about the series, there's a lot of spoiler territory with it. Same thing with Momiji. I so related to those characters like I did with Arisa and Hanajima because they dealt with things that I knew. Whereas with Soma, Yuki, it was hard for me to connect with him. And Shigure, at that point, I was like, oh my god, he's just another flamboyant anime character. But now, as an adult, Aya is one of my favorite characters more so because I see all of the weighing down of adulthood, weighing down of all the past mistakes one has done, of how it affects you.
Yeah, it truly does. And you now are watching this and you're looking at the adult characters more in our age and you're like, okay, now I see where they're coming from that perspective.
And to have a writer like Natsuki Takaya to do such well-developed and evolved characters for both young and old, so no matter the age of the audience, the interest of the audience, because I have talked to so many people who have watched Fruits Basket, just like ourselves. If you look on the gender normative aspect, you have a man and a woman who both love the series for almost the same reasons we love a million other series. And it's always fascinating how Fruits Basket, and this is just referencing the old anime and the manga. Yes, we've talked about the newest anime in bits and pieces, but this is just starting with that. Now we get into the new anime, and oh my god, the storytelling, I feel like not only has it captured the true spirit of the manga, but I think it's almost taken a step beyond it.
It has. It's even fleshed out characters in a way that the manga dev originally did. And I think having Natsuki Takahata on the writing staff, she's able to input ideas from the light novels that have come out later and ideas you never really got to put in the manga originally.
Oh, absolutely. Like the in the first season, we get a couple of episodes dedicated to Uotani. And yes, we got an episode dedicated to Hanajima in the original anime, in the original manga. We never really got much about Uotani other than like that brief glimpse of how she connected with Toru and then her mom.
And then the original series actually skipped that entire manga volume that dealt with that, and where they ended up corresponding this over a few episodes in the new series, which was fantastic to actually do.
Well, I also love what they're doing in this series that was not done in the original anime, is they're looking at the backstory of going on that connotation of it's a small world.
Yeah.
Everyone always talks about, oh, it's a small world, you know this person, this person, this person that I know, you've been involved in this type of thing. The Fruits Basket universe truly is a small world because there are characters that knew Toru's life, like Kyo. He was friends with Kyoko. Nobody knows what that means.
Yeah.
And they never reference it. Like, you got subtle references of the original anime talking about it, but nothing to the degree of what we have right now.
Exactly. And you got the little hints of the characters that are going to be coming in later in this season that were players in the manga later on. And it's going to be getting darker for people that are not expecting it, to think this is going to be the same lightheartedness that the original show was. When Rin's story starts coming into focus and all of her connections and seeing everything, some people are going to be really in for kind of a shock on just how dark it's going to start getting. And Yuki's future story arc coming up in the second season is going to be a surprise to people that never read the manga.
Well, you're going to have that. We're also going to have one thing that I think is very important, that I really like that's been done for this particular adaptation, is the backstory of Akito.
Yes.
Because Akito, everyone knows who Akito is. Everyone knows how abusive he is. And I'm saying the gender he. I know there are people out there who know the manga, that know the entire story. They're like, no, no, no. No matter what, if you do or do not know the series, the character Akito actually goes by, at least in the initial part, he.
If you actually know your kanji writing too, it wasn't until later that the kanji ends up flipping at a very specific point.
Yes, and I think it's important, and that's the one thing that I love that this particular series does, is it actually does take on so much about the realm of gender, of realm of abuse, neglect, family expectations that supersede what you feel that you should take on for yourself, as well as going on the element of what does love mean? What does family mean? And I always talk about this myself, and I think this is another reason why I love Fruits Basket. I'm always a believer that your family is not just who has the same blood as you. I believe a family as being those that you make of your own.
Which is a big emphasis with Toru, Hanajima, and everybody else that she's made friends with. They're a family for her, because after her mother's death, she really doesn't have a connection to her family.
No, she doesn't. And the other thing that this does take on, if you go on to a darker theme that surrounds it all over, is how does a culture like Japan look at the element of childhood pregnancy. And how does that affect the child, even if all of the family members are dead? Because Kyoko was 14 when she gave birth to Toru. And that always affected her in the bits and pieces of flashbacks that you saw in the series or in the anime or the manga. And it affected Toru as well, because people would look down upon her for being that. And the fact that she holds such strong conviction.
Yeah, as a single mother raising a child.
Which is very unheard of in Japan. So the one character I'm super, super, super excited to actually see, and they referenced it in episode 2 of season 2, is Kureno.
Oh, you like Kureno.
Kureno Soma is basically, literally, a male version of Toru. Because Toru is sweet, kind, polite, selfless, everything that she technically has no reason to be with the life she has had. And Kureno is exactly the same way. And so I'm super excited to see how they're going to depict him, because him and Arisa have a relationship, not sexual or romantic of any sort. I think it's more of that bonding. But I'm super excited to see how he's depicted, because he was the other character from the original anime that was kept on the cutting room floor that I really think could have benefited from being part of it to make the series more robust. Because it kind of felt for the original anime that up to the point where they got to Ritsu, it was following the manga for the most part, obviously leapfrogging different things, as even they did in the newer adaptation. But they really kind of almost stalled on the storytelling, but stopped to really focus on Kyo and his monster form.
Yeah, which it was a good spot to keep it for there, but then at the final episode of the season, you could see they were swinging back, which now they swung back into some of the stuff they glazed over at the first few episodes, especially with the most recent episode that aired with Ayane coming back in with Yuki. Yes. Which, if they actually had followed the previous one, that story would have taken place right before Kyo's monster form.
I'm looking forward to having Mine in this series, because I loved Mine, and I love the relationship between her and Aya. But I think the reason why this series is so important, especially right now, with everything going on, and we actually have another podcast that will be focusing on the quarantine and isolation, because we want to talk about how pop culture is affected by it. But I think this is a series that benefits right now because of it, because you have so much time to be able to engage in a story, to feel connected, to feel positive and happy. Because Fruits Basket is one of those series that no matter how depressing the episode or hard the episode can be, at the end of it you feel like you're connected in the world again.
Yeah, it's one of those shows that it will end up making you feel emotions that you probably don't want to feel right now, but at the same time, you know the story has an arc that's not going to end up leading in a depressing place. You just know, because of the way the characters are written, they're going to overcome everything that's thrown at them.
Absolutely. And if you know the manga, then you know where it's going to lead to. And I think, coming from someone who's read the manga, who owns the manga, I am super excited to watch it lead to that direction. I'm actually kind of curious as well if they're going to integrate the sequel miniseries, Fruits Basket Another, to it, because it really connects to the characters directly with their children.
It'll be interesting to see them do that. They did indicate that the light novel with all three of our favorite adult characters will be incorporated into this season, because it takes place
during their high school years?
Yep, during their high school years, and I can't remember where they said actually takes place, but it's shortly before the student council years ends up wrapping up for this current season, because it looks like with this 3-season formula they're doing is one season for each year of the high school is what it's going to end up following.
The one thing I will say that the first season did really well that I see they're setting up with this second season is the first season was developing Toru's character, developing her story of how she's connecting to all the characters, and giving a chance for Yuki and Kyo in the second season, along with the rest of the storytelling, to really become their own characters. Because in the first season, which makes sense because it technically is Toru's story, is she's the main focal point. Now, in the second season, the focal point is going to be diverging in two paths. You have Yuki's path within the student council, and him being able to become comfortable with all the student council members and understanding those relationships, because it is completely outside of his comfort zone, especially in the first episode when you meet the rest of the student, or most of the student council.
Yes, there's one we haven't met yet.
And Yuki freaks out, which I love because it makes sense, because none of them are like anything he's dealt with. And then the next episode, when you see Kyo bonding with his father, his adoptive father, and having his real father come in and start fighting with his adoptive father about what should happen to the cats. And it's nice to be able to see those relationships get built and developed even further, because they're important.
Yeah, they're very important. I do like the structure of the way they've done this, because anybody who reads the manga knows it follows all 3 years of the high school, and making it so it's going to be broke down for each year of high school is probably the best way to present this series.
Well, yeah, because they're going into their second... No, they're going into their third years.
Oh, yeah, they are going...
Yeah, because they were in the first season, and the first arc, so to speak, took place in the latter half of their first year.
All the way
to their second year. And, well, they're not complete with their second year. Yeah. They're actually, I think, they're like a couple months away from the second year of being finished, because the way Japan does it...
It's March through March. Yeah,
it's March through March, and usually they hold the student council meetings. I could be incorrect, so please, in comments, let me know if I'm incorrect. But I believe they still hold the student council elections in, like, December, January...
The
previous year, so that the old student council and the new student council can almost do, like, a transition. Because in American schools... because I had tons of friends who were in the student council, there was no transition.
No,
and you could be the student council president in your junior and senior year.
Once you were elected, you were stuck on that student council until you graduated.
Yes, and that's why I noticed in Japan there's usually a student council member from the first year, second year, and third year, and then the third years start eking out after the transition has started, because they need to focus on their exams.
Yeah, that's gonna be one arc I'm looking forward to watching too, because that is a very important arc towards the end.
There's a lot of arcs. I'm actually looking forward to seeing when Momichi grows up, because that's so hilarious. In the original anime, you get like that one scene in everyone's imaginations of what he looks like when he does his growth spurt. Because he's a late bloomer, and then in the manga, when you actually see his aging, you're like, oh, that's Momiji.
And then Hatsuharu, the one that we've kind of missed on this one.
It's not really missed. It's hard because his story is really so integrated with Rin. I don't want to go...
And not just Rin, Yuki as well.
Yes, but I think because of his love for Rin... that's where you see his true emotion.
Yeah.
But no, Hatsuharu, he's a great character. I didn't know what to think of him when I first saw him, or I first read about him, because he's so aggro.
Yeah. He is like the punk we all knew growing up.
Oh, God, he was the punk I probably dated a time or two. But, because technically that was my type. Kyo and Hatsuharu were my types when I was younger. It's kind of strange. But I think the hard part for him was you got to see the black and white version of a character. And he is a clear example of PTSD that does not come from physical violence.
Yeah, it's complete mental PTSD.
Oh, yes.
Which is, his mind has been split in half, and once Rin comes in, you'll find out why.
And that's exactly it, because it's kind of like for Hadori. I love Hadori. But, his story, which they really kind of muted here compared to the original anime, which is fine because
in kind of a way I'm glad they did, because the way he lost his eye is
it's very violent, and it amazes me. And his story arc to his growth and his recovery actually comes, I would say, the middle of this arc or close to the end of the next arc or the beginning of the next arc, because he actually gets his full redemption soon as well, because his ex-fiance gets married and he meets his next soulmate.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing all of that.
And one arc I'm also looking forward to seeing, because like I said, Shigure is one I relate to, him and his publicist in their current arc that's about to start.
Oh, God. Well, he gets so much more. Shigure, he actually for a short period of time becomes the villain of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And for this shoujo series, being a slice of life, unlike other shoujos or shonen, or I would say this is probably closer to a josei as a shoujo, but it's not, because the art style is very shoujo-esque. But with josei series, they're usually more on that dramatic relationship building, and usually most josei series in Japan are slice of lives.
Yeah, which you can tell that the author of Nana was highly inspired by Fruits Basket when she wrote that. Too bad she ended up writing herself into a corner and never finished the story.
Yeah, we'll actually have to do an episode on Nana for a pop culture therapy session. That's a good, thank you. That's a really good one, because I love Nana. But a lot of people have gotten inspiration from Fruits Basket. And for Fruits Basket, as a slice of life, there is no true villain. There is no true hero. You can have sprinklings of some, and you utilize those as smart catalysts to progress the story.
This is truly a story that shows that good intentions are paved the way to hell.
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely, all of those lovely little sayings that you've heard, good intentions are the pathway to hell, idle hands are the devil's plaything, kindness is in the eye of the beholder. Every old classic tiny saying has definitely lived true in this series.
Yeah, any way you can look at it, it's one of those that you really realize that life is going to be more of a villain than a person actually can be.
Yes, it really that's a great point. And the one important thing that I think it demonstrates, just like you said, is life sucks, but you have to live it to the fullest. If you do not live your life and you just become a bystander, you've never lived. And every single character, including the older ones, until Toru really came into their life and shook things up, except for one character, Kureno, who we have not met yet, every single one of those characters has been a bystander in their own lives, following the chain of progression they were told they had to live by. And it wasn't until you put the rice ball in the fruits basket that you finally figure out that there's more to life than just what you're told to be.
Yeah, it truly is. And it just goes to show that even in a culture so different from ours, family hierarchy still reigns supreme, even when you look at it to a Western perspective as well.
It does. I will say it's probably a little muted comparatively, but absolutely. I look at my, being an only child. You're an only child as well. I'm an only child in theory. I have a brother and sister through remarriage. But being raised an only child, and even with the siblings, it's not like I really experienced that.
Yeah.
But you have a ton of aunts and uncles, just like I do. And I've seen that hierarchy of who are the favorite children versus the less than favorite children. How they react to family goings-ons and things like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at this series too. It's really one of those that you can't but help but root for the characters at all. Every single character you're going to find some kind of connection with, whether you like them or even despise them.
Oh, absolutely. When you look at the Yuki fan club, those girls, I absolutely detest those girls because I was raised around those girls. In many of the schools I went to, you're like, yeah, they're not going to amount to everything. But then when you find out about their insecurities, who they are, what they do, how they feel, you're like, oh, maybe I should have given credit to the people. Once again, remembering that there's more to a person than what you see at face value.
Yeah. Which was a great episode that they had dedicated to them, because the original anime did not do it justice the way this one did.
They really didn't, and I think it's important to demonstrate that there's so much more to people than just what you see at face value. And at the end of the day, for me, Fruits Basket has been one of those series that, since I first connected with it in the early 2000s till now, just like a couple of other shoujo series that are kind of similar veins but older that I still connect with, they make me feel uplifted. Every time I can throw on any episode of the original anime, of the new anime, I can read the manga, and it makes me smile because it feels like, in a way, I'm home.
Yeah, you're visiting old friends is the way you're looking at it.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important thing. Not for just anime, not just for that. For pop culture in general. You need to have that home feeling.
Yeah. And with that, speaking of home feeling, we're going to be doing our next podcast on how we've been coping with the isolation.
Oh, absolutely. But in the comment section, let us know what you like about Fruits Basket, if you have or have not seen it, or if you read the manga, and let us know your series that makes you feel like you're at home.
Yeah.
What makes you feel at peace no matter any time you watch it. And thank you again for checking us out and sharing the time, and hope you're staying safe and healthy. Bye!
Later.